All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making the plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
Get ready. This summer, the Arena League Sports is on ASAP Network. Tune in live on either the Tiki Live or Roku app, as well as your smart home TV.
All right, everybody. We are here for real talk, and I am glad to be here. My name is Mr. Bond Chronicles. You can find me on Instagram, and a happy member of the ASAP Network. And I got Coach with us. Coach, how you feeling today?
I'm good, man. Glad to be on. Always good to talk with people that actually know sports, but no shame.
I definitely agree with that. And so we are definitely going to get into the sports part of the show. I'm sure that's why y'all are here. But we would be remiss if we didn't start by sending our thoughts and prayers to the people of Ukraine, understanding that this was a very unfortunate situation, an avoidable situation. And unfortunately, this is where they are. We're praying for you all. We hope that this can come to a conclusion quickly, efficiently, hopefully as safely as possible. But to the powers that be, I hope you guys can find a way to get together. But ultimately, our thoughts and prayers are with you all. With that being said, we have a lot to get to. And we got the NBA back. Me and you were talking off camera. I'm pumped. It's taken it feels like forever. Since Sunday, I've been watching all kinds of stuff that normally I would never pay attention to. And just like the NBA, the first game back, we currently have the Pistons up 90-86 on Cleveland. So as much as we've talked about Cleveland, even the bad teams got rest. So the bad teams got rest. They've come out ready to go. And I've been watching Cleveland, and they have not had Lauri Markkanen much of the year. And he's a problem because last I checked, I think he was like 1 of 8, 1 of 9. And at one point, they had Markkanen, Kevin Love, and Jared Allen on the floor. That lineup ain't going to work. Too many bigs in this NBA. So it sounds like Cleveland's going to have to figure out a rotation. But right now, he doesn't fit. But that's kind of just where we're at currently. For you, Coach, what are you watching for the rest of the season? I know there's a bunch of storylines and different things. What really sticks out to you as we head down this home stretch?
It's a few, man. Like you said, it's quite a few, I should say. But I'll try to be brief. First thing is, of course, the new faces, new places, the type, that type of thing. To see how Harden and Embiid are going to be able to play together in Philly. Of course, we're waiting to see when Ben Simmons gets on the court and how those guys are going to play together, him, Kyrie, and KD. That's another thing I'm looking at. And in the West, you got the Phoenix situation we talked about on Monday in terms of how they're going to cope now without Chris Paul. So I'm interested to see how they're going to manage this second half of this home stretch, I should say. It's really not a second half because the All-Star break came kind of really well into the season. But just to see how they're going to manage down the stretch. And then the last thing for me is to see if LeBron is going to be able to, put on the Superman cape and carry the Lakers into the playoffs in the Western Conference. So those are the 4 things that I'm looking at.
Okay. No, I definitely agree with that. And also shout out to Con, man, for one, watching, we appreciate it, but 2, Mitchell Robinson's dad. Last I heard, I don't know if he had been found, and it had been a while. So definitely our prayers for that situation. I don't know enough about the details as to if there's maybe a history
Yeah, I
of
didn't
mental
even know about that.
illness.
That's sad. That's sad to see.
Yeah, I know he posted it on his social media. I think I saw maybe
Okay.
2 days ago. I think it had been a week at that point. So I had not heard an update, and I haven't heard it really covered anywhere. So hopefully that rectifies itself soon. But for me, I would say all of those, I think those are ideal storylines. For me, I think it's a time where I mentioned Cleveland. I think I'm ready to see who's real and who's not.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
Memphis
I'm with
really
you.
Memphis now that they're going to hit this long stretch? Is Golden State going to finally round into shape? When is I forget what's their big man's name because he ain't been back all year.
Oh, Wiseman.
Wiseman, like I thought he was supposed to be way back before Thompson, and we haven't seen him or really heard much from him. So I don't know if they're just really, really slow playing it. But a lot of teams, to your point, with new faces, got a lot of teams trying to figure out chemistry issues. And like I said, I'm watching Cleveland struggle with it. Golden State hadn't been playing super great going into the break either. So with all the trades, it'll be very, very interesting to see how those all pan out. I also am watching just to see the fit is Indiana. What's going on there with Halliburton? He's looked really good in the games he's played. Are they a
Yes.
team that can? I don't think they can go on any kind of run. I don't even think they'll make the play in, but can they finish the year strong the same way Phoenix finished 2 years ago? I think with Halliburton and some of the young talent there, if they can formulate something, they might can attract someone or make a trade for a bigger player to try and get back into it in the East. Milwaukee, what are they? They look phenomenal some games. Other games, they don't look so great. So I'm really looking for clarity as we head down the home stretch to figure out, are a lot of these teams real or are they going to fade? And I think it's going to be very interesting to see. To your point with LeBron, they have statistically the hardest schedule out. So they definitely going to have some work to do without AD.
That's
And
love. Good looking.
what's up?
No, I was just saying the comment. That's love. Good looking.
Oh,
Appreciate you
absolutely.
supporting.
For sure. But I think the other thing is LA's, made Russ the scapegoat all year, and now they need to rely on him. So how he's going to respond, if I'm him, it's kind of like, y'all been booing me, y'all been talking trash about me, and now AD hurt, and now y'all need me.
Right.
And by all accounts, there's a bunch of reports saying he wanted him traded, and he's sick of playing with him. So I'm just very interested to see how that comes about. Lawyer marking and bricks another 3. Get him off the court. Y'all gonna blow this game to Detroit. But yeah, it should be interesting how this season ends up. And you said this, and I thought it was weird. I feel like the All-Star game was around the same time, but do they usually have only like 20 games coming off the All-Star break? It seems
I
like there's
guess
not
so
much
because it's always around the same time every year, but it just seems like it's further along in the season than I don't, and maybe because the season got pushed back, it got pushed back a little bit. I'm not sure, but yeah, it definitely does seem like we're further along in the break than it usually would have been. But yeah,
because our resident LA fans are always like, wait till the All-Star break. Well, there's only like 20 games left.
right. That's what I'm
after the
saying. This is
All-Star
like
break.
this is a sprint, man.
So when
And that's why I was
AD
going to be interested. No, sorry. I was going to say that's why it's going to be interesting to see how these new pieces, fit together because they don't have a whole lot of time to, get chemistry and to, learn how to play with each other and play off of each other. So this is going to be really interesting to see how fast these guys can all integrate each other's talents. And then, and it's on the coaches as well to put these guys in the best position to be successful. So that it's a mad dash to the finish line.
For sure. And speaking of, I guess you could call it a mad dash. I don't know really what to call it, but the NBA had their top 75, which we talked about over the All-Star weekend, and they had everybody out. It was a great celebration, and it was a great moment. And then they decided to rank the top 75 players. And I had a number of issues with the top 10, but I wanted to kind of get your thoughts. And I'm trying to pull it up now to see the.
I got it. I can give it to you if you need me to.
Okay, I want to see if this is it because the headline don't look like the right. No, because this has Kevin Durant at 10, and that's not the right one. Do you have it?
Yeah, I do.
I had it before, and I don't
just put
know.
it in the chat.
Okay, cool.
So while you're looking at it, I'll just read them off. So, of course, you got MJ at 1, LeBron 2, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at 3, Magic at 4, Wilt at 5, Bill Russell at 6, Larry Bird at 7, Tim Duncan at 8, Oscar Robertson at 9, and then Kobe Bryant at 10.
Gotcha. So I obviously do not agree with a lot of that. And there was others on the list I didn't agree with either, but we can just stick with the top 10. And kind of from what you've seen, what are your thoughts on the top 10? Would you have any movements? Do you think they got it right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do think they have Kobe too low. I think there's a couple of spots that you can, make a case for. He could be over, like at least at 9 with Oscar Robertson. You could probably, put him over Oscar Robertson just, based off of what he did offensively and defensively, as well as, having more rings. So you can put him at 8, I think, as well. You could make a case for him over Tim Duncan. I'm not sure over Larry Bird, just because of his impact on the game between him and Magic, and a multiple-time MVP as well. And Larry Bird was a all-time great and a big-time clutch player. So I'm not sure. Those are probably the 3 spots that you could look at. And being if you're a new school person, you probably think maybe Will Chamberlain is a little too high, but the numbers that he put up was just totally ridiculous. So it averaging 50 points in a game season is just something we'll never see again. So I just think it's one of them things that depends on your perspective and depends on how long you've been watching the league. You could probably look at those 3 spots.
Okay. So I have a little bit more that I would change. Obviously, I would move Kobe up. And a lot of the reason that I move Kobe up is because of the rings he won without Shaq. And when I look at that team compared to the teams that Duncan played on, I feel like Duncan had way more support and Duncan wasn't relied on in the same way to get it done. I think Kobe helped make the Derek Fishers and the Meta World Pieces and the Pau Gasols and some of those other guys that he was playing with. And Lamar Odom's another one. And when I see Magic and Kareem, I get Kareem because of the numbers and the points. But there was very few times in Magic's career he wasn't playing on an all-star team on a regular basis. And I don't think he gets enough, I don't know what to necessarily call it slight, but the same way people kill LeBron or kill KD for joining these teams, if you look at Magic's teams at any point in his runs,
loaded,
like there's 4 and 5, sometimes 6 Hall of Famers that he's running with. So if it's pretty easy when you have the greatest scorer by statistically on your team, you're going to get a bunch of assists. Like you're probably going to win a lot. So that to me is what always been kind of my issue where people rank Magic ahead of Kobe is he's just had so much help. I don't know that Magic carried an average to maybe slightly above average team to anything. And he lost quite a few times with those All-Stars to Larry Bird, who's on the list, who also played with a ton of superstars and Hall of Famers. So that part to me just isn't fair. And I know a lot of and I've been one that criticized LeBron for the team hopping to build super teams. which is different from what we saw in the 80s. It wasn't that they necessarily was jumping around, calling each other to link up.
Yeah, they built their teams differently, though.
But the
Yeah.
teams still were stacked.
Mhm.
And so for that reason, I have Kobe higher. I actually had I would have moved the Magic from 4. I would have had Wilt higher than him. Russell, I move down. I put Bird above Russell for me.
Mhm.
And then I have Oscar to move down, and I have Duncan down. And then y'all know I'm not a LeBron guy, so he's nowhere near 2 for me.
So who'd
He's
you put
lost.
2?
For me at 2, I go Kareem at 2.
Okay.
I go Kareem at 2. I go Kobe at 3. I go Magic at 4.
So you put in LeBron. You put in Kobe over LeBron.
100%.
Yeah, I'm
100%. I think LeBron's a better all-around player, but
exactly.
he also, and I don't want to turn this into a Kobe LeBron thing because that'll get us way off. But just as a player, I like Kobe better. And I think when I think about the 81 and the 62, and even who he won with, he's won more rings, and he has the rings without the huge talent. LeBron got the 1. He did get the 1 when Golden State was down 3-1, but I just see LeBron statistically being a longevity guy.
Yeah, but it's high level. It's high level. You know, most times with numbers guys and longevity guys, their numbers go down as they get older. This guy is maintaining a super high level.
Right. So then that's where I correlate it. When you're talking these guys, you got to correlate it to winning. And so for me, I look at he was in the East. Do I think if LeBron's Cavaliers teams, those early years were in the West, do I think he would have went to 9 or 10 straight finals? Absolutely not. I think he's benefited in a lot of ways. And I think that he played it well. And now that he's been out West, yes, he got 1 ring, but he's also had some pretty tough years. And so for me, that factors in. Like the gauntlet that Kobe went through in the West was tough his entire career. Whether it was, even if you want to think about Dirks, if you want to think about the Golden State teams, the Redeem teams back then, like there was just never an easy out. He wasn't getting, the Charlotte Bobcats in the playoffs. Like that just never happened. So I have him higher. I think his impact on the game is bigger for me, even globally. I think LeBron's massive, but overall, I just put Kobe above him. And I just the losing record in the finals is just hard for me to swallow. So
so the counter, your points. I would say this: one, would Kobe have 5 rings if he didn't have Shaq? For 3 of those championships, he wasn't even the best player on his team. LeBron has always been the best player on his team. Well, except for, you can make a case for AD for that last one. But all his other championships, he's been the best player on the team. So, and then the other thing is that when you played half of your career with the most dominant player in the game, I could say the same thing. Like if you because once Shaq left and he had those other guys around him, he didn't elevate those guys. Whereas with LeBron, he elevated the guys around him and made playoff runs and finals runs with teams that most people believe had no business even getting that far. So
who would you say that he elevated? Because I think LeBron does the opposite personally. When I look at Kevin Love, Chris Bosh, and some of the other players that he's played with that had to take secondary roles that didn't really know how to fit.
But I think that was more so because you had so much talent on the team. I don't think that was necessarily LeBron all on LeBron. I think it was because with both of those, you had 2 guys, Kyrie and LeBron in Cleveland. Then you had D Wade um, and LeBron in Miami. So that had the ball in their hands a lot. So as a result, they kind of, the big guys have to take a secondary role. So I think
Do you
that was
think
more so a
Dwayne
product of
Wade,
that.
he made Dwayne Wade better?
No, I think they made each other better, to be honest with you. I think Dwayne Wade gave him that clutch factor that he needed. As well in Cleveland, Kyrie gave him that clutch factor that he needed. But I'm talking about guys like, the Booby Gibsons, what's the guy? Damon Jones. These guys getting wide open looks and knocking down shots and getting contracts and getting money when they had no business. They really were fringe players in the league. I could look at that one, or even Matthew Dellavedova. Like these guys, all benefited from playing with LeBron. So I just think it's one of those things. And then to me, like if you look at that first finals run with against San Antonio, that team should not have beaten the Detroit Pistons, that loaded Detroit Pistons team. Let's not forget about that. When he scored the 25 straight points. So that team had no business being in the finals. And then that last Cleveland team with when J.R. Smith, made had the brain fart. Like that team, he elevated that team. Really was not as nowhere near as talented as those other teams that went to the finals. So I think those are two specifically I can think of off the top of my head where he was, clearly the biggest reason as to why they were, why they went as far as they did.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but I would also say, for me, I look at someone like Sasha Vujacic. I look at someone like Devin George. Like other people, Kobe did in essence elevate other people as well and played well. I think Steve Blake might have been on one of those teams. But
did he really? But I
I
guess
think
with
he
with
got them to
him,
play their role.
I guess to me, for me, the difference is that whereas LeBron, it's guys open looks, guys have to score when Kobe doesn't shoot the ball. I think there's a difference, if that makes sense to you.
I mean, I
So,
agree that, like I said, they're two different types of players.
no, for sure.
But if I had to take one, and that's kind of how it comes out, I would rather have Kobe than LeBron for me.
I understand. And it all depends, and it's on your preference because if you're a guy that likes closers, then you're gonna go with Kobe. If you're a guy that likes all around players, then you're gonna go with LeBron. So I think it all goes off your preferences and off the things that I should not say your preferences, but the things that you hold in higher regard.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I am glad to see, that they came out with the list and all that. Like, I think they handled it really well. I don't usually agree with any of these lists, so that's not a terrible surprise. But in news, I believe it was today, they asked Seth Curry about Ben Simmons. And in essence, does he owe the 76ers an apology? And he said, it's just business. Like, that is the business. So, no, he doesn't owe them an apology. Based on what you've seen and all the drama and the saga around it, do you feel like Ben Simmons owes Philadelphia an apology?
I I don't know. Be honest, like I guess the only reason I would say that he would owe them an apology is if this whole reasoning comes out to be this mental health thing. If this turns out to be a sham or this turns out to be a fraud, then I think he owes them an apology. I think at the end of the day, this was one of those situations where um, it just wasn't going to work out. Like he did not want to be there long term, and they had to get him out of there. Now, could he have handled it differently? Could he have handled it, uh, differently, maybe more professionally? I don't know because I don't know what went on behind the scenes. I don't know the things that he did or how he communicated or things of that nature. So if the things come out in terms of them saying that how he situation, and there was some things that comes out that says that he didn't handle it professionally, or he wasn't, forthright, or he wasn't honest about this whole, the mental health challenges and things of that nature, I would say he owes him an apology. But if not, then at the end of the day, he was trying to do what he thought was best for for himself and for his future and for his career. And in today's NBA, where guys are manipulating their way out of town, this is nothing new. So I don't know, how much he would necessarily owe them an apology.
No, I agree. And I think for me, if there was going to be an apology, it's not because he didn't play. The apology comes from me from he didn't shoot the ball in the playoffs when they needed him to shoot the ball. But
okay.
As far as how he's handled it, like, I get it. Do I agree with it? No. I think he left a lot of money on the table. He's a young man, and it is a business. So you got to take what comes with the business that you choose to sign up for. But as far as an apology, no, because I don't feel like he's the reason he didn't do something that caused him not to play. It was his coach. And it's one thing for a player to say, we talked about Shaq and Kobe. Players can feud. When your coach calls you out publicly in that way and says he doesn't know if he can win with you, I think that was more so the issue. Embiid is Embiid. He's a troll. I think Ben Simmons gets over that. I think the Doc Rivers piece of this is what not enough people talk about, and I think that had the more lasting impact. And the fact that I don't believe there was ever a public apology or, hey, I shouldn't have did that. I don't need you to talk about it. You blast me in public. Come out and say I shouldn't have said that. I was wrong. And I don't believe we ever got that from Doc. But no, I don't think that he owed them an apology by any stretch. Like, that's the business. That's kind of the way it works, and that's what they fought for in the CBA, was so that players could kind of have this. Now, as we get into this next phase of the CBA, whenever that comes up, I think this will be addressed. And I think owners are going to look to try and find a way to get away from that. But as it stands, like, that's just kind of, it is what it is. And you just kind of got to deal with it. And I'm looking right now, and the Cavs, they missed it. The clock is winding down. It's 10 seconds. They're down 3. They're trying to shoot threes. They've had 2 offensive rebounds. And I think we're going to get, an open 3. And they missed it again. So Cavs lose to Detroit coming out of the break. Not a good start. Not what you want to do, especially coming off the All-Star weekend where they.
But I was going to say, to be fair, Darius Garland didn't play tonight, so
you can't lose to Detroit.
Yeah, I get it, but I'm saying I'm not going to make as big a deal out of it because Darius Garland didn't play. If Darius Garland plays and they lose, then I'll make them over a bigger deal of it. All right, well,
I'll let you have that. I see it. All-Star.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's you can't. I'm not saying it's a bad loss. I'm just saying it would be a worse loss if Darius Garland was playing.
The Suns are up 72-66 on the Thunder. So we talked about the Chris Paul injury. It's not ideal. They are winning, and it's still early, so we'll see what they can do with that. But it looks like we're gonna have some drama. These injuries, and that was the other part to this. I know I'm gonna move on in a second. I've seen a bunch of people on injury reports that either were in All-Star weekend or weren't hurt going into the weekend. So a couple people I've saw are out for extended periods of time, and I'm like, when did they get hurt? So I'm not sure what happened to Darius Garland because he looked fine on the skills challenge night. And now he has a foot problem.
But he didn't. But he did look fine in the skills challenge, but he didn't play a lot of minutes in the
rookie
All-Star game. So maybe it happened. So maybe it happened that night,
which would be really disappointing.
Yeah.
But you kind of brought it up, and I'm glad you did. With contracts, and you saying players not honoring contracts, and there was a bit of a tone in your voice about players not honoring contracts. So my question to you is, a lot of times we've talked about the John Wall situation. We've talked about other players who Andre Drummond was one in Cleveland, matter of fact, that get sat for whatever reason. And in that moment, nobody really bats an eye. It's just like, oh, well, you're fortunate. You get paid millions of dollars to sit. But when players decide they want to sit for whatever reason,
you get paid all this money, why are you not playing?
Why are you not playing? Why are you load managing? Why aren't you gutting it out? Like it's you're weak, you're soft. We've all talked about Anthony Davis and his recovery time and how he's always hurt, and Kawhi is always hurt. And so my question is, how or why is that narrative in place where if the team wants to trade you, that's fine. But if you force a trade, you're selfish, you're not a team player, you're a me guy. If you don't want to, if you outperform your contract and you want to hold out, you're selfish, you're this, that, and other. But when they refuse to pay you what you're owed, or if they cut you because you're underperforming your deal, that's okay. And I'm just curious, one, as a coach, but just somebody that's in sports, why is that narrative that way? And how did we get here, in your opinion?
Man, that's a great question. And, I was thinking about it. And honestly, it's just a double standard at the end of the day. And why we give the owners or the front offices a pass and then get on the players, I honestly don't understand it, because no one comes to the arenas to see the owners. No one comes to the arenas to see the general managers or the front offices. They come to see the players. But, when the players decide to do something, or, this whole player empowerment movement, a lot of people have taken issue with, like, I'm all for it. Like, because especially, in the different sports, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but, these different sports where, in NFL, these guys are putting their bodies on the line, and they don't even have guaranteed contracts. So, like, it's like you said, when it's the players doing it, then they need to be, for the team. They need to think about their teammates. But when it's on the other side, then it's just part of the business. And I don't get it. Like, it's just totally totally unfair. And I don't know if it's honestly, what I think it is, and it just came to me. I think it's one of those things. I think the thing is that with players, I think as fans, we see ourselves as, man, if that was me, I would never do that. I think that's where it comes from. I think that people, try to inject themselves into, the player's shoes and think that if their shoe was on the other foot, they wouldn't do these things. So I think that's where the whole animosity comes from.
That's a good point. I had not thought of that. But I even look at it when teams say, we want to see what the young guys look like. Yeah. What that says is we don't want to win. So I got veterans that are better than my young players, but we ain't going to play them. Exactly. But when a player says winning isn't everything, all of a sudden he's not competitive. He doesn't have the fire. And so I can kind of see, that aspect of it, of, we relate more to players than the owners, but I still feel like that's a narrative that needs to be rewritten in some form or fashion, because it's just, it's an obvious double standard. And I also would say, I believe the media plays a role in it as well, because they expect, when a player is not playing, that the media is going to let them have it. And when someone gets traded, they're begging for a trade. And so I think the media definitely has a role that they play, that I think they need to be more responsible with their platforms, and how they cover these instances of, specifically with players. Like, when a player's sitting out, it should be a thing. When Kyrie sat out for a reason that was really, really personal for him, they killed him for it. And a lot of people eventually came out.
And still are.
And still are. But a lot of people have backpedaled and they've tried to soften their stances. But if it was another situation where, like I said, they've told the Knicks are one. We saw what happened early in the year when they benched Kemba. They went on a slide. They brought Kemba back. They kind of righted the ship, but the team has still been straddling mediocrity. But they're still in position. They could get into the play-in. And now you come out right out of the break, right after the trade deadline, and say, you can't play. We'll trade you in offseason. And Kemba said, I'm not taking a buyout. I'm not negotiating a buyout when there could be people there. For what? Why would I do you all this favor when you could have traded me and you chose not to, knowing good and well you weren't going to then play me the second half of the year? The same thing they did with Cam Reddish. There was such a huge disconnect. They traded for a player Tibbs didn't want, and he wouldn't play him for like the first 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, don't get me started on my Knicks, man. Don't ruin my movie.
Like, it's just it's something that, and I think the biggest piece of this is a lot of people follow what they hear and see.
Oh, 100%.
These networks and these pundits and these talk shows talk about players in such a way. When James Harden wanted to get out of Houston and he ate himself out of it and he didn't do this and didn't do that, and he's a terrible teammate and everything else, and I would never take him and he shouldn't be great, or you can't consider yourself great when you're this, that need to go away. And especially when it's former players that do it. Like when Le'Veon Bell and the whole team came out against him when he was just trying to get his money at a position that traditionally is undervalued, and you don't get to the second deal.
Right.
Like, it's just something that's really disturbing to me, and I hope that at some point we can fix it, but I hope more people begin to address it, because I don't think it's right for the players.
No, absolutely. But I don't know, I don't know if it's going to be fixed, because from what I've heard or what I've read in terms of this new collective bargaining agreement, like they're saying that these owners are really coming for the players. I think I've heard Stephen A. Allude to it, and of course seen in other places that this next collective bargaining agreement, they're coming for the players because they feel like the players are getting too much power. So I don't even know if it's going to be fixed.
I don't know, and I haven't read enough about it, but I don't know what you can do other than fine them and not pay them back.
Yeah, and again, and you've already, and here's the other piece to it that we haven't even talked about. Well, we kind of talked to it, but we really didn't talk about this whole load management thing. Like, you guys choose to sit these guys for load management. So you've already given them an out to be able to sit out games, and now you're going to turn around and say, no, you can't sit out games when you're already doing it for them. Like, you can't have it both ways.
Not to mention the times where people are finding out they're getting traded on the internet, from TV, from friends and family, or players have suited up, come out for warm-ups, and then they pull them off the court because they're trying to work on a deal. Like, it's just really shady.
I'm going to tell you a quick story. So, my uncle is Rod Strickland, right? So one year he got traded and found out at a funeral.
Dang.
So he's at a funeral, at a repast, and people are coming up to him, yo, we just saw on the TV you got traded. So this man literally found out that he got traded while, dealing with or attending a funeral.
Right. Like, one of the worst places.
Exactly. So it's no, like you said, there's no matter of fact, I was listening to listening to another podcast, and Spice Adams, right? The guy that does he said he found out he got cut while he was with his family at Disney World. Like, there's no rhyme or reason, and there's no care. And they always talk about this whole family thing, and once whatever team always, that's nonsense. Once they have no use for you, they discard you like trash. unless you're a elite player.
Yeah. So like you said, I don't know what the owners can do. I don't know if it's something in the clause that could potentially void the contract somehow. I think it's hard to negotiate the mental health.
I think it's too convoluted for them to even do anything about that.
So I will be curious to see. And I don't think it's just this league. We saw it, and if he goes to it, and we may end up getting there a little later. But even with the women and what they've been trying to do and galvanize support, like a lot of times, Brian Flores is another example. If you want to be treated equally when it comes to these owners, you got to do it the way they understand, and that's legally. Like they're not just going to just do it. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with the NFL. Of all the leagues, the league that should have guaranteed deals doesn't. And I think a lot of that's just poor negotiating power and lack of unity, where hopefully at some point they get it, but I don't see it. I definitely don't see it.
Yeah, me either. And to be honest with you, I don't think that, I think especially in the NBA, I think their union, they're really, in lockstep, and they're really organized. And LeBron is the de facto king, quote unquote, of this whole player empowerment movement. So I don't think he's going to let it happen on his watch. Between him, Chris Paul, new president, NBA Players Association president CJ McCollum, they got Andre Iguodala, they got some great leadership. So I don't think that they're going to allow that to happen, and they'll do what they need to do to make sure that players continue to have their their form of leverage, so for lack of a better term.
And I think to that point, I think that's really important because a lot of those players are getting up in age. So are the Giannis's, you would have thought the Zions, are some of these other players, when they get into that position, are they going to be willing to toe that line, to take that hard line stance as the money and contracts get bigger, to make sure that they can keep their leverage, because they got the leverage. Like it's obvious that NBA players have the leverage, but when they got to renegotiate, and you're renegotiating with potentially a Luka Doncic, who's a foreign-born player, and you don't have the Kobe, you don't have a Shaq, you don't have a LeBron, you don't have those kind of personalities in the room, that the Kevin Durant's that own media companies that know what ownership and the value of that is. I just hope that doesn't get lost, because once you give up that power and control, it's real hard to get it back. And the NBA got it, but they better make the most of it, because
for sure,
if owners get it, they ain't gonna give it up.
That's a fact.
And so I did want to have a little fun with you, and I did think we'd have a couple others on, but that's okay. So we'll run through this real quick, and I want to hear your start, bench, or sit. And I really wanted to have Freddie on for this, but we ain't gonna have him, and that's all right. So we got Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and this is all in their prime. Or Anthony Davis. Who are you starting? Who are you benching? And who are you sitting?
Are we talking fully healthy?
Well, the caveat to that is, at the time of this draft, they are healthy, but they're still the same player.
So, so in their prime, fully healthy.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I was saying earlier about preference, and depending on what your preference is, that makes it pretty tough, because if you're a person that likes an all-around guy, then Jokic is going to be your guy. But then, as much as he brings offensively and rebounding wise, he's not the rim protector that the other two guys are. So, and then there's his versatility. Embiid has so much in his bag. Even Jokic has a lot in his bag. He plays a little below the rim as opposed to Embiid. He's not as physically imposing, but he can step out to the 3-point line too. So it's hard. My sit is my start is hard, I should say. My sit, I'm good. I think I'm pretty clear on that. And you probably know where I'm going.
Yeah.
But man, as tough as this is, man, I'm gonna go start. I'm gonna go start Jokic,
Mm.
and it's a toss up for me. And I'm gonna tell you what put it over the top for me is Jokic is passing ability and his ability that to be able to run the offense through him. I think Embiid has gotten better in terms of his playing, making plays for other guys and, playing out of double teams and things like that. But Jokic, his passing ability, like I haven't seen passing ability like that guy since, Sabonis or Vlade Divac. Um, he brings those guys to mind, and I think almost like the combination of those two guys. Um, so I just think his passing ability and his all around play. I'm gonna give him that start spot, and then I'm gonna bring Embiid off the bench, and I'm going to sit. I'm going to have to drop. What is it? Start bench sit. Yeah, start bench sit. So I'm benching Embiid, and I got to sit AD because of Embiid's low post dominance, because of his ability to be able to I think actually Embiid is a little better shooter from range than AD. So, and of course, his ability to dominate in the paint as well as protect the basket. I'm just going to go with that because he just has the ability to take over the game offensively. And I think that's the one thing that Anthony Davis struggles with is his ability to take over the game offensively. I think sometimes he's a little too, I think he's defers sometimes a little too much. And I don't know if that goes from him being starting as being a guard and being a point guard when he was in high school. I think that may have been something that just carried over with him even as he went through the crazy growth spurt. But yeah, just for that reason, I got to start. I'm starting Jokic because of his passing ability, his all-around ability to run the offense through him. Then I'm benching Embiid, and then I got to sit AD.
Okay. Yeah, I think the 80 answer is easy at this point in his career. He's not consistent enough. I look at two guys, the other two, they're preeminent, dominant players on their teams. They can go get you 30. I think Embiid's like tied for the league in scoring, league leading scoring, right up there with Giannis. You're getting a triple double almost every other night out of Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like
Yeah,
what AD was is gone. Like I think he got his ring. I think he's never been a high motor guy. I think the pressure of LA has been a lot for him to deal with, and it is what it is. So that leaves us with the other two, and I think it's actually cut. I said sit and bench, but it's cut. So for me, I nod Embiid, and the
good.
reason that I do nod Embiid is because I think if you played them, if they matched up, I think Embiid would get the better of Jokic. I think Jokic he has maybe, I don't even know if he has better footwork because Embiid's footwork is really good too.
It is.
They're both loads, but I just think Embiid comes off to me as more of a killer, like more of a talker. But Jokic is always there. So that to me was the really big issue is I know what I'm getting. Jokic is going to show up to the game. He's going to give me pretty much my whole hum, 25, 10 and 7. But Embiid can go get me 40 or 50 on a semi-regular basis if I needed him to. And so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and start Embiid. But I definitely am excited to see those two guys for the foreseeable future and what they managed to put together for us.
Yeah, man, I get it, man, because Embiid has that, and it's something I like to talk about when it comes to point guards. Like he has that take over the game and just dominate the game factor. where you could just throw it down to him 4 or 5 positions in a row, and he's either going to get you a bucket or he's going to the foul line. There's not too many guys that you can do that with. So I can totally understand why anybody would pick Embiid, because I think with the Joker, man, because he's not as athletic and he's not able to dominate physically the same way Embiid is able to. So I think that's what the difference is. So it just goes on again. It goes on your preference.
Yeah, and Joker reminds me similar to obviously much better skill, but like Kyle Anderson, and Luka, they don't move fast, but they get where they need to go.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're super efficient when they get there.
At their own pace. Yep.
And that just it's really fun to watch. Like going into the break, Joker got the ball. I think it was on the wing, drove, and ended up kicking it. And I forget who he kicked it to, and they had a game running 3. So he's always willing to make the right basketball play. But down the stretch of the game, I think I want Embiid. But Mike had Conrad had a good question about Ben Simmons. March 10th's a long time away for me.
Actually, it's only a couple weeks.
When I say long time away, I'm saying they only got 20-something games left. So if you're waiting to March 10th, that could be 5, 6, 7 more games. And they looked bad tonight. They got blown out by Boston.
Yeah, they got smacked.
And there's going to be a couple home games that Kyrie can't play. Now, they're talking about lifting that, but there doesn't seem to be an urgency to that for whatever reason. So if I'm
actually, I think it is. I read something where the mayor said that that's one of his priorities is to relook at that requirement. So I think it's something that we could see happening in a really soon.
Well, he's seeing the game the same way we see the game, so I would hope it should. I don't think it takes a lot. Like,
no, it's just at the end, you're the one that has the ultimate power in terms of rules and regulations. So it's just one of them things where you just got to do what you need to do to make it happen, because and this was the whole thing. Like, and this is my whole issue, and I don't want to get too far down the road with this, but just really quick. This is my whole issue with guys like A. And now, we were talking about it earlier about backpedaling, where you were killing and crucifying Kyrie about sitting out and not have, about the whole home game situation. And you knew this is not nothing new. You knew that role players that weren't vaccinated were able to play. And you're acting like this is some new news. This is nothing new. We knew this at the beginning of the season, and we knew that this rule was totally unfair. So, like, for you to come out now and say that he's getting screwed, like, to me, it's disingenuous, because you knew this all along, and you didn't say that at the time.
No, I agree. And like I said, I don't want to go down that route, but I will say in the last year and a half, there's been a lot of different messages that have come out about how to combat everything. And as a player,
there's no perfect answers or no right answers.
And as a human, to have doubt or concern based on the ever-changing knowledge, which is to be expected. It was an unknown thing. So more stuff was going to come out. But I think politicians politic. That particular mayor really seems to like to be in the news. So it's not terribly surprising, because at one point when he first got elected, nothing was changing. Like, that was an obvious question. And no, we're not going to do that. And very shortly thereafter, as people began to give more criticisms, because to your point, Andrew Wiggins, for example, could come in unvaccinated and play, but then Kyrie couldn't.
Right.
Like, that just doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's just kind of a sign of the times, to be perfectly honest. But hopefully that gets its movement. I would like to believe Ben Simmons wants to play. I don't really know why he's not playing. I don't know if it's a conditioning thing, but the only way to really get in shape is to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why he's not playing. They haven't really said what the holdup is, other than for optics. But we just saw Harden do it. He had a hamstring problem, and now he's playing tomorrow after he got traded. So
yeah,
like what are we doing?
Yeah, them 2 games sitting out. Yeah, that's what we talk about, Con. It's crazy. It made no sense for you to be able to mandate players, New York players, but they're not outsiders. Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, in terms of Ben Simmons, man, I think it's two things. And I don't want to be I don't want to downplay, the whole mental health thing, but I think to keep I'm gonna be careful what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to be nice. To keep the to make sure that this, is not. I guess to make sure that he doesn't come off as, or it's a possibility to make sure that he doesn't come off as the guy that just was milking this whole mental health thing just to not play. I think they have to. I think that's part of it. The other part of it is, two, he hasn't played in I think it says 10 months, so he is going to have to ramp up and get himself in shape because he wasn't practicing. Like I think it would have been easier for him to come right back if he had been practicing with the team, but he wasn't even practicing with the team. All he was doing was I guess working out on his own and working out with his trainers and so forth. But I think he's going to to they said he's going to ramp up for the next 1 or 2 weeks. And also, I would, for his own, I think for his own personal, like, I would hope that he would want to play that game and kind of deal with the booze. Like, take that on. Like, I think that would be, especially if this is something, that's your mental health is a challenge. I think this would be something that you could celebrate as an obstacle that you were able to overcome. And this could, maybe spur you in the right direction and lead you towards, a better, you being in a better space mentally. Because, that's part of that's part of life, is dealing with challenges. And that's part of building up mental toughness, is dealing with, situations that challenge your mental. So I would hope that he would do it, but I would be shocked if he did. I think they're going to try to ease him back in, and they're not going to put him in that raucous environment, because we know how tough Philly is, and we know they're going to, somebody might collapse a lung booing him. So yeah, I don't think they're going to put him in that environment.
No, I definitely agree. But I think your point is one that's tough. So I agree. Mental health, obviously, you would want to overcome your fears, and then that's like a notch in your belt that you can say, I overcame that. Like, that made me better.
Yeah.
But if people, and so this is the flip side to him leaving Philly. The criticism was harsh, and the criticism shouldn't have been given in the way that it was given. That doesn't mean the criticism was wrong. Like, that was a huge moment in the game. And when your second best player can't be on the court in playoff games, like, that's a problem. Okay. So although I get the way they went about in the heat of the moment, and it's not really heat of the moment because there was a press conference, there was time to cool down and think through it, but they made a conscious decision to say what they said, especially Doc. But even in that tells me, if that is what drove you to not be able to play, I don't think you're going to do well going back there yet. Now, if you can go back as an NBA champion next year, or but at the same time, God forbid that you have your first game back as a playoff game. That would be a whole different level.
Yeah, that'd be rough.
But maybe if it's a playoff game, maybe you got the full squad with you. Because if you come back and it's just you, or it's just you and Kyrie, but that's assuming Kyrie stays healthy, nothing happens. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot in that. So it'll be interesting to see. I also will be curious to know how, if this drags, how do I want to word that? If this drags, how are KD and Kyrie going to feel? Because thus far they've been supportive, but if this drags and if it forces KD to maybe rush back or anything like that, like I think it could get tricky and it could go south really bad. And he's got all his years on his deal, so I think he has the longest deal left of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you could probably move him, but you may not. Well, they won the trade, but I don't know. I think he can go downhill real fast. So it'll
Wait,
be.
here's another piece to it though. So let's say let's say for argument's sake, we hold him out for the Philly game. As of right now, the Nets are the 8th seed. The Sixers are 2.5 games out of the 1 seed. What if Harden comes back and they make a push to the number 1 seed and Philly takes KD takes his time getting back and they kind of shuffling and trying to figure out roles and things like that, so they don't have the greatest second half. They wind up in that 8th seed.
That's well.
I guess it would all depend on the whole play-in thing.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
the play-in piece. But
yeah,
regardless, if that is how it comes down, like that is a lot of pressure.
And it's one of them things where the whole people that believe in the basketball guys. This seems like this is a collision course that Philly and Brooklyn are going to be on a collision course to meet at some point in the playoffs, which will be must-see TV at the highest level.
100%. 100%. So yeah, we'll see. We gotta play it out. I would hope, and I can't imagine he would come back and then sit that game, or his back might be tight. he might have calf soreness. I hope it's not on like a back-to-back or something. So if he comes back before then, I think he got to play in that game. But last thing I got, and we kind of touched on it earlier, but since you are a Knicks guy, I do want to get
let me cook on this.
Your thoughts. What are the Knicks doing? And I'll just kind of leave it open, like Kemba specifically, but what are they doing?
Your guess is as good as mine, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I was really at the beginning of the season, like I was really optimistic. We got off to a quick start. Looked like the new pieces was fitting in. Fournier got off to a nice start. Kemba was doing his thing early. And I was like, you know what, man, we could actually be, better than last year. We got more talent. We got more guys to score. D Rose coming off the bench doing his thing. Quickly was struggling early, but, I was really optimistic. And this thing just went from the penthouse to the basement in like a New York minute. And the other part of it is this, like, I talked to, I have my own podcast and key radio show. And so I have my uncle on, have my brother on, and we do some NBA stuff from time to time, when we're able to. And I had asked Rod, I was like, look, man, I'm a frustrated Knicks fan. I said, if World Wide West and Leon Rose and Thibodeau can't fix this team, then I just believe that we're cursed. And so, it kind of talked me off the ledge, and he was like, kind of reassured me that these guys are all, um, really going to get the job done. And it just sounded like everything is just going off the rails. I'm reading that Leon Rose and Wes not feeling Thibodeau, like they're all not all on the same page. You talked about earlier they traded for Cam Reddish, and then he didn't want the guy. So it's just, man, it's just totally. It's just like it's just going to be another lost season, and there's another piece to it that makes it even more frustrating. Is it's just another example of the Knicks not finding a way to have a New York guy, a New York guard, you know, not be successful. Like this is the third time now. You had Mark, you got rid of Mark, then you drafted Rod, and then you traded him after a year and a half. Now this is his Kimba, and it seems like it's just all the same thing where you got these homegrown guys that want that you bring to New York, and then you don't put them in a position to be successful. So I don't understand. Like it's just not making any sense to me. Yeah, no, he did, but I think for the money, it made sense when they signed him. I was like, it made sense for the money because they didn't spend a whole lot of money to get him. I think it was $5 or $6 million over 2 years. I think it's like 12 million over 2 years, something like that.
Small deal.
Yes, it was worth the risk to me. So I just don't understand, and I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if Thibodeau, if his whole style, if this is a situation where this guy he can only be with a team for 2 to 3 years before he wears out his welcome. I'm not sure, but it's just frustrating because it just seems like you can never have any sustained success for the Knicks. The last time we made it to the second round of the playoffs was 2007, I think, with Melo.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was
Yeah,
2007.
you're right.
Yeah, so it's just another frustrating season, man. And I don't know. I don't know if I see a light at the end of the tunnel because we can't get free agents to come. You think bringing in World Wide West and Leon Rose, who's an agent who has all of these relationships with players throughout the league, I thought that would be the combination to bring in a marquee free agent, and it hasn't happened. So I don't know what the thing is moving forward or how it's going to happen to really get an infusion of talent because it just seems like for the last 2 or 3 years, all we've been getting is second and third tier guys. We never gotten that number one guy. It's always a second option or a third option. We just never gotten the number one option. Now, I will say that RJ Barrett has made some strides this year. I've seen him, make some progress. I've seen him, get better. I've seen him using his right hand and being more ambidextrous and rounding out his game. But I just don't know, like going forward, to me, Julius Randle is a number 2 or a number 3 option. I think RJ Barrett is a 2 option. But where's the number 1 option coming from? And that's what the Knicks need in order to really be a contender in the East. And I just don't know how it's going to happen because we haven't been able to get that marquee free agent to come and take the money. It's not like we haven't had the money. We've had the money for the last 2 or 3 years. You just haven't had anybody that's willing to come and take it. It's just frustrating, man.
No, I definitely agree with the last piece. And I think that was really what was probably the disappointing part of when Katie and Kyrie chose Brooklyn. Like you would think if you're going to go to New York, you go to the Garden. Like everybody loves to go play in the Garden, but nobody wants to play in the Garden as the home team.
Right.
And so I guess my follow-up to that would be you have Julius. You got some other young pieces. You have somebody allegedly in New Orleans that wants to play in New York. Is there pressure, or do you have to make that deal? Because he is box office.
He is.
So if it hasn't worked, do you go that route? Now, the flip side to that, or the add-on to that is Tibbs he grinds his players. And if you have a guy with an injury history, do you want a coach like Tibbs coaching him? Because that's likely going to lead to more wear and tear. So, do you make the deal for Zion? And if you do you have to fire Tibbs and get somebody else?
Oh man, that's a great question. I honestly don't know. I think with Zion, with his injury history and the fact that it's a problem with his feet and the fact that he struggles with maintaining his weight, I don't know if that's going to be and the fact that he plays above the rim, like all of that landing. If you got bad feet, then it's just you're a ticking time bomb. Which jump is going to be the one that's going to, you know what I'm saying, it's going to cause the injury to happen again. And we've had, and to be honest with you, like as much as I was hoping that we was going to get Zion out of the draft, that year, I don't want to. I don't want him now. Be honest, because we've been through this already. I've seen this song and dance before. I could go all the way back to Antonio McDyess, like when we've made deals for guys who were Antonio McDyess. What's my man, Mari Stoudemire? Guys that making deals for guys that got injury history. Like I don't want to see that again. So as much as box office as Zion is, I'm not doing that deal. I'm going another route. I'm not going Zion. I would go Dame before I go Zion.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure that works. I don't know how you get Dame, but obviously Dame, I think, is the better player. I just I think you got to give up more, and two, I just don't know how you make that work. But yeah, I'm not a Knicks fan. I've never been a Knicks fan. My dad was born in Indiana, so I grew up a Pacers fan, and so I've never liked the Knicks. Allen Houston, John Starks, Oakley, any of those guys.
Of course.
But we'll see what happens. And we got some great games that's coming down to the wire for those of you watching before we get out of here. The Hawks and Bulls are in a close one. The Grizzlies and Timberwolves are in a close one. So we've had a couple games go final. The Pistons we talked about. The Suns did get it done. They ended up winning by 20. And they actually got it done with a cast of characters. Jay Crowder had 17. Cam Johnson had 21. Nice. Mikal Bridges had 21. Booker did have 25.
12 assists. That's big time.
12 assists. So DeAndre Ayton, I think it might have been on the other shows, either on this show or the other show. I can't remember. I said he wants that max deal. Chris Paul is out. This is your opportunity to prove to them or others you are worth that max deal. And you put up 6 and 8 on 5 shots against the Thunder in 30 minutes.
That's bad. Against the great Derek Favors.
Against the world-changing bust almost of Derek Favors, who gave a whopping 6 and 3.
Yeah. That's tough.
You only had 3 fouls, so you weren't in foul trouble. Like, that's just not good enough.
You're not helping yourself, buddy.
You're not helping yourself. So we talked about, I think it was on the Friday.
Yeah, that was Monday.
Oh, was it Monday?
Yeah, that was Monday we talked about it.
Okay, yeah. So, like, this ain't a good start. If you can't get more than 6 versus the Thunder, like, you might have a hard time ahead of yourself, and you're going to cost yourself some money. So you might – he won't be Dennis Schroeder, but you might be in the same ballpark range again. But it'll be interesting to see, man. I'm excited to have basketball back. It's been a long time.
Yes, sir.
It's been good. So with that being said, we can go ahead and wrap tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Kenny, thanks for coming through. I know it wasn't necessarily the easiest of times, but I appreciate you, man, pushing through. And we will see y'all again on Monday, recapping all of the weekend in sports and entertainment. definitely continue to check out the ASAP Network. It keeps growing bigger and bigger and better and better. Y'all have a good evening. God bless.
Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays.